Hey there, welcome to Ask the Expert. I'm Ted Craig, editor of Restoration Remediation Magazine. My guest today is Ashley Taylor, Executive Officer of Content Recovery Specialist. Is that the right name, Ashley?
Yes, that's correct.
Great. Okay, and why don't you tell us your background and what you folks do there?
Okay, so I have roughly about 16 years of experience in the restoration industry. I come from a long line of full service restoration contractors. So I've spent a lot of my time in every department in the restoration industry, whether it be mitigation, going out and doing the water demolition, to building the reconstruction estimates, to actually doing recon and everything in between. So I really touched every facet there is of the restoration industry. From there, I decided to develop a company called CRS, or Content Recovery Specialist. And what we do is we actually take personal property out of homes that have been damaged by fire or water, and we pack them up, bring them back to our facility, clean and store them, and hold them until the homeowner's home is ready to be packed back. Bring everything back, put it back exactly as it was the day before the loss, and put the homeowners finishing touches back on their home to get back inside.
And you're in Pennsylvania, but you're growing the business, correct?
That is correct. We have 3 franchises now. We have one in Cleveland, Ohio. We have one in Indianapolis, Indiana. And as of this week on Monday, we have one in Southwest Florida as well.
Okay. Timely there in Southwest Florida, huh?
Yes, yeah, he actually is just south of where the hurricane came through. That was actually his inspiration for wanting to be a part of CRS. He spent a lot of time over the past couple of weeks helping people, clean out their homes and carry their contents to the curbs with his local church. And he heard about our company and he came up and visited with us. And now he's our newest franchisee.
Great. What are the requirements for being a franchisee with CRS?
The biggest ones, we want to make sure that the person's going to be financially stable. Want to make sure that they have the capital to support the business and, make sure that the customers are protected. Just along with the insurance carriers, we want to make sure that they have a clean background, that they're safe to go into customers' homes. And additionally, as they hire employees, they also have to make sure that they're safe. And in general, just have a good sense of business, the caring, compassionateness, being able to run a good operation in general.
Are you finding the franchisees or are they finding you?
We actually have a consulting company we're working with that presents the CRS brand to their potential franchisees, and then they bring us candidates who are interested. And from there, I actually personally take them through the whole introduction to CRS process. And I'm also assisting them in getting their businesses all up and running right now.
What made you decide you wanted to do franchising?
So we actually have a building that we bought. It was a large commercial building, and we have a friend that used to work for one of my old companies that is putting in what's called a pet well clinic, which is basically a Med Express for dogs and cats. It's a really great concept. He needed space, and we happen to have extra space in our facility for retail stores. So he came to the CRS location, and it was the only conference room we had built out at the point in time. We took him in, and he's looking around and he says, "You guys really need to franchise this place." He says, "You're not franchising this?" I said, "No." So we don't really know very much about it or anything like that. Never really even thought about it. It was supposed to be just a locally owned and operated company. And he says, no. He says, "You have to do franchising." So he actually is a consultant with the company that is bringing us all of the leads right now. So he's been the mentor for me through the franchising process, because that's a whole new ordeal for me.
Right.
I know restoration up and down, left and right, but franchising is a whole new world. But he's been fantastic in helping us through the process.
Well, that's great. And what do you offer to your franchisees? What is the sales pitch for somebody who may be interested in adding a franchise like CRS?
So the biggest part is the industry is changing, which I guess we'll get to a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm sure you'll have that question at some point.
Right.
So, but that's the biggest one. And then additionally, we have a lot of technology based to our system, and that's not common in restoration industry, period. I came from a lot of companies that were family owned and operated for years and years, and they just never really fully embraced technology. We, on the other hand, are the exact opposite. When you're dealing with thousands of items from somebody's home, you have to be extremely organized, and you have to make sure you know everything down to the last pen where it's at located in your warehouse. So we use a really great organization tool that actually helps us track all of our contents, where they are, where they're going to, and what process they're in, to make sure that those homeowners know that their belongings are safe, and we're actually able to send them reports showing a digital inventory of all of their items, so they can actually see, what we have in storage.
Now, contents restoration is a somewhat specialized field. Obviously, all restoration is specialized, but contents takes a little more because it's such intensive work. Um, what do your franchisees come with that skill set, or do you train them, or how does that work?
We are actually training all of our franchisees that skill set. The way I look at it is just like myself. At one point in time, I knew nothing about restoration. You have to start somewhere. The nice thing is they have a strong mentor group that's able to guide them through the process. And I'm a very detail oriented person. So I have manuals that are very, very long that are able to walk them through step by step, exactly how to do everything. So it really helps them to kind of guide through the process. Plus, before they open their franchises, we have extensive training that they go through both at our corporate office, and then we actually go to their location and train them there as well to make sure that they're fully trained and ready to go.
Okay. What has been the biggest challenge so far in as you've been growing this business?
Probably the biggest thing, just like everything else, it's restoration, just not enough hours in the day. Uh, Between managing the corporate location here in Pittsburgh, which has been extremely busy as of late, and then making sure that I have enough time to dedicate to all my franchisees, just delegating time in general. Other than that, for the most part, everybody that we kind of talk to about the business is very, very on board with it. They love the idea of helping people. They love the idea that the business is insurance driven and all of the wonderful things that comes with claims in general. So those are probably the biggest things, just time management right now.
Do you see a point where you would split off the two jobs and you would maybe do this and have somebody else doing your current work?
Yes, and we are working on that already. I have a sizable staff in the corporate location, and some people that are really marked well to move up in their positions. I already have delegated a lot of my responsibilities to my general manager here in Pittsburgh. She's doing absolutely fantastic. So she's freed up quite a lot of my time, but I am going to have to bring some of them into the franchising realm to help me with that side of things as well. So basically, I want to do a lot of in-house promotions if I can. It's always great when you can take your staff and build them up and, move them into different positions. I wouldn't be where I'm at today if it wasn't for somebody having faith in me and giving me the opportunity to do so. So with that, it's best to do in-house, but if needed, we will outsource.
Great. Um, you mentioned earlier that the industry is changing. Uh, we talked before that insurance companies are putting more of an emphasis on contents restoration. So what is going on in the industry? How's it changing? And what is the emphasis these days on contents?
So a lot of it's with the TPAs and the insurance carriers programs with the TPAs. They're actually starting to focus contents into its own assignment. So instead of the reconstruction being the lump assignment that you get with the contents and dry cleaning and everything else, just like they broke dry cleaning out, 10, 20 years ago, they're getting ready to break the contents out as well. So with that, what that does is that creates a nice lead source for all of the contents businesses. And the reason why they're doing that, I think mostly stems from just the fact that, 20 years ago, you could buy a dining room table for $100, $200, whatever it may be. Now people are buying a lot of really expensive furniture.
Mm.
Things are just going up and up and up in pricing. Even for the base models of things, they're astronomical anymore. And then you add on the fact that, a lot of the newer generations don't want to necessarily own a home and have all the maintenance with it. They want to live in a townhome and they have extra money, so they buy really nice furnishings. So with the insurance industry, it's a lot more cost effective for them to have us clean those items and restore those items versus total loss those items. So their focus is really trying to help severity on that side. And that's what we're here to do. We're here to help them make sure we can preserve as much as we can and also do it in a cost effective way. If it's something that does not make sense to clean and it's cheaper to replace it, by all means, that's the route we're going to go. We don't want to clean stuff that just it doesn't make sense for those things.
How big do you hope, expect, foresee this growing to? How many franchises do you think, well, let's say within the next year or two you could handle, and maybe ultimately do you have a goal?
So I believe in slow controlled growth. I've watched quite a few companies that I worked for in the past grow rapidly. You can in this industry really quickly take on more than you can chew and fail. So with that, our goal is to grow roughly about 5 to 10 franchises per year, and build this out slowly. We don't want to rush into things and make sure that, all of our pieces are in order as our franchises are operating. Those goals may change as we build out once we start getting a good momentum going. But for right now, that's kind of my projected future.
Okay. Is there a size where you see you're getting to where you might say, well, this is more than I can handle. I might just, what is your long-term goal for yourself with the company?
So I've always built management underneath of me and built staffing underneath of me. So I will continue to do that as we go. At some point, we're definitely going to have to bring in supporting roles, chief executive operators, our COOs, so on and so forth. But that being said, because of the territory size that we're giving to our franchisees, we're only probably going to be able to max out at roughly 200 to 300 franchises across the United States. We want to make sure that all of our franchisees have a very healthy territory so they're able to operate their business without worrying about impeding competition directly from CRS. So with that, it'll be, I think when we get to full status, we should still be a pretty controllable size.
So how big are those territories? Like the franchisee in Ohio, what does their territory right now encompass?
They're running all roughly about a population of about 1.5 million. It's what we operate here in Pittsburgh, and I found it's a good, baseline to be able to operate a nice, healthy business.
So you go by the population size, not necessarily by square. Well, at least for the metropolitan areas, I would imagine it might be different if somebody wanted to open a franchise in Wyoming.
Yes, and as we get out to those more outlying states, they'll probably have a little bit of a lesser population, but in the same sense, they also have lesser competition as well. So, it's a little bit denser as far as being able to figure out who's doing what in your competition you're dealing with in major cities. Once you get out in the rural areas, there isn't much out there. So in those situations, we'll have maybe a little bit smaller populations, but they will still have the same business volume just from the sheer fact of less competition. Yeah, and then some of our larger cities, I'm trying to split them up mostly by county when I can, just because it's easier for them. It's easier for them dealing with the TPAs, and knowing where your boundaries are. But there are some areas like Dallas, Texas. I mean, it's a huge population in such a small area. So that's actually probably going to get broken up into at least 2 franchises there. We'll have like a Northern Dallas and a Southern Dallas.
Sure, that makes sense. Even just getting around town would limit some of his abilities in an area like that, I would imagine.
Yeah, and you have, again, the one guy's, is my county is so much smaller than the other counties when we were looking. He's not a franchisee yet. And I said, yeah, I said, but you have all that population in a small area. I said, realistically, your commute's going to be roughly the same because you're sitting in traffic waiting to
Right.
get to that area. But as far as the crow flies, you're definitely a lot closer to all of your customers than, say, the Cleveland branch would be.
You mentioned the training that you offer. Um, what sort of, marketing and or maybe connections with the TPAs do you offer?
So the TPAs are still kind of getting their feet wet with the whole referral and breaking out of the assignments. They're just really starting to get into that. So we do help them with the application process and getting on board with that. There will be a lot of marketing from corporate into those as time goes on here. But then a lot of our focus is actually on the local restoration contractors right now. They've been having a hard time finding skilled labor, and in turn, that's what we're here to help with. We're here to take that workload off of them and kind of reshift it. So a lot of my business here in Pittsburgh is that way, and a lot of our business is out in Indianapolis and Cleveland and Florida will be the same.
So they'd rather do the large, wall repair and so forth and have your folks handle the contents, uh, the restoration companies.
Yeah, so you're going to have restoration companies that have their own dedicated staff for contents and warehouses
Right.
and things like that. Obviously, they're going to continue doing what they're doing, and that's perfectly fine. It's more so the mid-sized companies or the smaller companies that would actually basically borrow staff from one department to move to another, to handle those services. So, for instance, a contents job comes in, they need to go pack out a house. They're pulling their framers, their drywallers, their carpenters off of the repairs job they're working on to go do the pack out, so that way they can do the full service repairs and get it kind of set up for that. And then those guys would go back to their normal job. The problem is staffing everywhere in the United States is a nightmare right now. And it's even harder for skilled labor. When you do find skilled labor, it's quite more expensive than it is for a general cleaner. So what the restoration companies are finding is that A, they don't have the staffing to split off anymore. They need to focus on the repairs jobs. And secondly, whenever they do have the staffing, it's just not cost effective to bring them over. So they can utilize our company to basically remove that burden of labor from them, and they can focus on what they do best, which is getting the house put back together. And the nice benefits they get too is all the technology and everything that CRS brings along with it, the digital inventory and things of that nature.
You're paying a drywaller to do drywall, not a pack out, and so that's where the cost effectiveness is obviously becomes an issue.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you're $10, $20 an hour difference between the two. It's a large margin difference for sure.
But do you get any resistance from restoration companies that don't necessarily see it that way and see, oh, they're taking business away from me?
Not at all. We
Okay.
actually have not run into that at all. We've run into a few restoration companies that say, hey, you know what, we have our own facility, we'll keep you
Sure.
in mind if we run into any issues, we'd be happy to give you a call. But other than that, we're pretty good. One of those companies that actually gave me that statement is now using us for pack outs because they had some issues, and some of the contents people quit, and needless to say, they needed some jobs done. So they gave me a call, and we're actually assisting them on a job right now. But that's what we're here for. We're here to
Right.
help. We're not here to hurt. We only do contents. We don't do water mitigation. We do not do reconstruction or anything of that nature. I don't have a single carpenter on my crew, nor do I want to get back into that. I've done that for 16 years. I've had my fair share and my fill. But yeah, all of our staff, that's all they do all day. All they do is pack out homes, clean contents, pack back stuff. So that's what they're really well versed in, and helps us with our efficiency.
Well, we talked about your expectations next year. You're hoping to add maybe 5 to 10 new
Mhm.
franchisees. Any other expectations for the coming year?
Realistically, it's going to be kind of working with those TPAs, and I'm excited to see where the industry is going. It's like I said, it happened 20 years ago, probably 10, 20 years ago, I don't even remember, with the dry cleaning, whenever they kind of broke that off into its own segment. And Contents is moving pretty quickly in that direction as well. So more so than anything, it's working with them, it's helping them in any processes that they need. And just kind of watching how things unfold with the industry in general. It's pretty exciting.
But you said it's still a learning process for those folks, for some of them, as far as breaking it out. But that should get
Yes,
smoother as time goes on, I would imagine.
absolutely. Yeah, it definitely will get a lot smoother. You always need the first one or two to kind of make that leap. And then, as people kind of get involved, it'll definitely run a lot smoother.
Okay, great. I should have asked, your franchisees we talked about, what sort of businesses were they in before they got the franchise? Were they in restoration or were they in other fields?
They were actually all in other fields, in
Hmm.
different fields. I have one that's a corporate executive. He sits behind a desk all day and he's ready to be out. He wants to help people and he likes the whole business concept and plan. He's not afraid to get his hands dirty. That's one of the other things that's kind of a prerequisite to be a franchisee is you can't be afraid to get your hands dirty. When they actually come to our facility, I take them on a pack out that day and I make them get their hands dirty just to make sure that they're okay with that. Because
Right.
ultimately, if things get crazy here, I'm never, too proud or anything to go in there and help with the pack out myself. And they need to be the same way. Um, the other one is an accountant or an ex-accountant. He was a finance director, dealing with accounting on a large corporate company. He'd actually retired, very young retiree, but he'd retired and was looking to kind of start a business of his own. So that's my second franchisee. And the third one is kind of in marketing and business management. So all three of them have a little bit different backgrounds. They all have super wonderful personalities that I think they're just going to do super well in this. And they're all very smart. They all, picked up on everything extremely quickly whenever I was explaining to them what to do. For people like us, it's really easy to understand. And I can give you like a high level overview. You're like, okay, I get it. When you bring in somebody that doesn't know anything about restoration, you can sit there and explain everything to them. And I do it in a 8-hour period and a normal person's head would spin. um but they sit there and they absorb it all in and they ask me questions and things like that. So they're all going to do super fantastic.
Excellent. All right. Any parting thoughts?
No, other than that, we're just excited. Thank you very much for having me. First of all, I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Secondly, we're excited to kind of see where the industry is going. And ultimately, for all the restoration contractors out there, if you need help in your area, check and see if there's a CRS coming near soon.
Awesome. Great. Okay. Well, thank you very much and good
Thank
luck.
you. Thank
Thanks.
you.